Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Executive Table Talk. My name is JT O'Donnell, founder and CEO of Work Daily and the host of today's show. As you know, each and every week, I am interviewing top executives from around the globe and across all industries and skill sets, answering some of the tough questions that you need to know and understand. And today, I am really excited about the topic of how to present updates to C-suite members. I think this is not something that is historically coached inside organizations. I also think that from company to company, how they like to be presented to can be different. I think different industries have different ways of doing it. And so I am very lucky today to have an incredible group of executives hanging out with me: Lisa Perry, Michael Willis, Lynn Holland, Mark Taylor, and Catherine Marshburn, all from different industries and segments, to talk about updating the C-suite. As C-suite members themselves, I think they have a lot to share. So Catherine, we're going to pick on you first. We're going to get right into it. You've got an incredible background, legal background, entertainment industry background. Let's talk about the best practices in your opinion.
Thanks, JT. So to start off with, executives are so busy with their days. I recently worked for a very large streaming platform and had the privilege of being able to see busy executive calendars in the music industry. And at times I would see 8 to 10 teams approaching these executives to try to achieve funding or extend a longer runway for their project. And that means those executives are really hustling with a lot of information. So my approach has always been, when I'm in charge of presenting a project to a busy executive team, is to first kind of get inside that executive's mind. What are they thinking when each of these teams come in front of them to ask for funding? I think they're looking at, do we need to review this now? Are the right people on board for this project? Do I agree to the next steps? Do I send the team back for more review, or am I going to approve it and go ahead and give the budget? I think a lot of executives are looking for trust and leadership with these teams. In the music industry, our whole revenue stream is built on music artists releasing great new music on multiple streaming digital platforms, as well as shows, brand deals, etc. So when the executive at each of these labels or the platforms are looking at funding the project, you better believe it's pretty expensive, usually for tier 1 artists. So I've learned over time to communicate effectively to C-suite members in the music industry, to actually do something that might not feel extremely orthodox in most verticals, but for me it works because I know the timing is so limited. I usually present the answer right off the top. Usually I'll receive a memo that will say something like, an email that will say something in the subject line like, new release music deadline for Mariah Carey, November 15th. It will give me all the details and all the information, a very, very technical kind of an update or report with some of the data of her fan base, where her primary target markets are located, the type of music, etc. When I go into the executive meeting to pitch for the dollars for the rollout plan, it would probably sound something like this. Mariah Carey is releasing November 15th with an anticipated 55 million streams over multiple music platforms, where we will parallel hiring influencers to receive and secure a viral moment on TikTok, along with her touring schedule, all morning media shows, for a total dollar value and spend of $550,000, which, by the way, is a really small amount for that type of an artist. But I like to put a quantitative amount right off the top. I like to get it out there because I know there will be questions. In fact, the second part of my strategy usually is to immediately provide supporting arguments, because that's a big number, right? And those executives have 10 teams coming at them. They may be responsible for $20, $30 million in projects. So I'm trying to get myself in there with my team to show how we're going to achieve that goal. And I like to look at 4 supporting arguments as my second step. And then I like to quickly, as my third step, summarize the process in a story of something from Mariah's past, how her new music and her rebranding is going to affect her future results, and how it's going to help our company, and that it's going to be successful. So just to review, to kind of up your game in front of music executives in the C-suite, there's 3 steps that can help you, come out looking like a rock star. The first one is presenting the issue or the situation as an answer. And you're very confident in that because you'll be questioned for sure. So your responses should be confident, not cocky, but something to the effect of, you should do this or we should do this to achieve 55 million streams on multiple platforms. and be super confident and exhaust the data before you go in. I prefer to really have, a few notes, but to really memorize it so I feel really confident in my soul that I know this is going to be successful. The second step is to provide those supporting arguments quickly. We've all been in board meetings. So when you hear something like that or a number like that, you're already putting buckets, right? Oh, is that going to work? Is that not going to work? So let's go ahead and provide the solutions for those teams and be confident when we explain it. And then finally, I like to provide a little story, a little, personalized, maybe pop up from Mariah Carey Live, which I have seen, stranger things happen in music meetings, and share a little bit of her story and romance it a bit and close it with that it's going to not only meet, but exceed all of your expectations. So those are my 3 tips to music executives in the C-suite.
I love it. I love it. I love how you lead with the numbers and the data, right? I don't know a single C-suite that doesn't say, show me the numbers, show me the money, explain it to me. Really, really powerful stuff. Lisa, you're a global marketing exec. You've done this once or twice. What else can you add to this? How do you do it in the marketing world?
Thank you, JT. Presenting updates to C-suite is an extraordinary opportunity to showcase your skills, your strategic thinking, and your organizational contributions. So every time the opportunity presents itself, seize it enthusiastically, because it allows you the opportunity to showcase your impressions that you can make on that C-suite. And to your point, I have presented to C-suites, to boards numerous times. And so here's some things that I've learned along the way. Determine your purpose. And somebody may come to you and say, hey, I want you to give this update on X, Y, and Z. I have been in these presentations numerous times where they will say, why are you here? What do you want? And it can be startling. So you've got to be very clear on why you're there, and think and align it to the strategic objectives and priorities of the organization. And think about what you want the C-suites to do, think, and feel as a result of your presentation, because your message will get very focused as a result. You also want to understand their perspective. And Catherine focused on this nicely. C-suite is very high level. They're focused on the strategic goals, the financial performance, and the organizational success. They're not down at the execution level, so don't bring them down there. You want to tailor your message to the priority, needs, and concerns of what they're focused in on. Frame your updates in a way that impacts the bottom line, the growth potential, and the competitive advantage. The next thing is craft a compelling narrative. Tell a story that engages them, that shows the significance that you're making and a positive impact that it's going to have in the organization. I recently gave a brand update to C-suite, and I had a presentation. I had beautiful visuals, some words on a slide, but it was the story that I was telling. I had 20-page presentation and I got it done in 10 minutes because I was telling a story. And that story was, here is the problem that's going on in the marketplace. And I got nods. Yep. Here's what our customer is telling that they need. Oh, I got them hooked. They wanted to hear more. Here is the unique solution that we provide in the marketplace. I got nods. And here's how we're going to do it. And here's how it benefits you. That was the story, and I got them. That's what you need to do, is provide real life examples to kind of bring your presentation to make an impact for them. Where you can, you want to highlight those key metrics and results, the financial performance, the customer acquisition, the growth potential, those tangible evidence of progress. You want to be, and Catherine said this very well as in her, what she was saying is, you want to be confident and concise. When you are not, they are going to ask questions and have skepticism in what you're saying. You want to project an aura of self-assurance and professionalism. So your update should have clarity and brevity and be focused on the critical points that you want to get across. You want to provide strategic recommendations as well. Leverage your expertise to suggest innovative solutions and actionable steps. And you want to anticipate questions and be prepared for responses. C-suite seek to understand, and they have a lot of questions that they're going to ask. So be thoughtful in your responses, because it's going to show your depth of knowledge and position you as a credible and trusted resource. You want to engage in two-way dialogue, because it's going to demonstrate your collaboration and your openness for a culture of constructive dialogue. And last but not least, you got to follow through. If they've got questions that weren't answered, quickly follow up and address those answers and follow through on next steps.
Love it. Love all the aspects of that you talked about, and especially just the storytelling aspect, because you do need to paint the picture for them. These are busy, busy professionals, and a story gets it to them faster. I think that's genius. Talk about getting it to them faster. Mark, you come from an operations, finance, IT background, a lot of experience with doing this. In fact, you've been on past shows and you've really highlighted your knowledge in this area. So let's talk about updating as a way to impress the C-suite.
Yeah, thanks, JT. You know, like you say, my background is in finance, and you know, if you boil it down, it really is all about getting things done, right? So, are we getting things done? Did we get things done? So, the first thing that really kind of popped into my head about this, and I could talk for ages about these things, right? And again, like you say, JT, as well, and nobody trains you for these things. You have to find out, right? So so the first thing that popped into my head is, you don't go into one of these meetings and then come up with a surprise, right? If there's negative news that needs to be said, then you make sure that that's pre-communicated. So, for instance, in one of my previous roles, my manager, the chief operating officer, had the ear of the CEO, right? She pretty much go and see him every day. So I would make sure that if things weren't going to plan prior to a meeting that was coming up, I'd make her aware, because I knew, and I'd also say as well, this is what we're doing about it, but I knew that it would get back, right? So it wouldn't just be presented as you know, I think there's an expectation with these meetings as well, certainly the ones that I've been part of, is, like I say, you know, are things getting done? Yes, they are. So the negative news, particularly to hear it first in that kind of environment, it's not great. The other thing that I said kind of segues into that, you know, in the words that I wrote. So the next thing that gets me is, you know, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? So again, the meetings that I've been part of, the CEO is really expecting things to have either been done or being done. So, Mark, was this done this week? The answer is yes, right? And you don't even miss a beat, right? Because as soon as you start to miss a beat, you go like, well, your eyes start to go to the ceiling because you're looking for an answer. What that really means is no, right? So again, I think you've got to be very, very primed to make sure that you're really, really on point. You know, did it get done? Yes. Is it getting done? Yes, it is. Now, with that as well is you obviously need to tell the truth, but there's also a difference between the truth and the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So I'll give you another example. So this happened quite often, actually, in previous experience. So in the meeting, maybe towards the end, the CEO would say, now, is everybody working together? You know, is everybody pulling in the right direction? You know, are you all kind of friends? You know, there's no fighting in the sandpit. And the answer was yes, without hesitation. The answer was yes. What he wasn't aware of, maybe he was, but, you know, maybe that's why I was asking the question. But during the week, we'd actually been bumping heads quite a bit. But before we had the meeting, I'd made sure that, you know, everybody that was bumping heads, it was a case of, guys, we've got the meeting coming up. Are we all on the same page? Yes, we are. Right. So the truth was, when he asked the question, yes, we're all pulling in the same direction. However, you know, I didn't go into the detail to say, well, actually, during the week, right, we don't get along and we're butting heads, right? Didn't need to know that. So the answer is yes. Tell the truth, but it doesn't need to be, you know, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Another thing that resonates, this idea of, did you say what you're going to do? So last meeting, we said we were going to do A, B, and C. Again, I've been in meetings with clever people that make notes about A, B, and C. And they'll ask you, did you get A, B, and C done? And as I've just alluded to, the answer has to be yes, right? Otherwise, if it's anything else, then they don't trust you to get things done. And that maybe segues a little bit into what Lisa was saying about it being a showcase. Absolutely is a showcase. You know, is Mark Taylor the guy that gets things done? Yes, he is. Or is Mark Taylor the guy that doesn't get things done? Right? You're walking a fine line there. And then the other thing that I'd add is, again, and I can't, yeah, I talked about it last week as well, but, you know, be concise. You know, if you're going to use a deck, it's one page. And I know last week there's some questions about how do you get everything down to one page, and I'll just reiterate what I said last week. That's what they pay the big bucks for. And the other thing about having concise documentation as well is there's less on that information that you provide for them to ask you a question that you weren't actually prepared for, right? Because if you give them too much, they'll ask you a question where you go, that's a good question. And then you're not the person that's on point. So that's my kind of feedback, I guess.
I love it. I love the touch with it. I think what you really point out, Mark, is that we don't understand oftentimes that the C-suite is responsible for so many things, and there's so many hours in a day and so much thought they can put to any one subject, that the clearer you can make it for them, the easier it can be for them, the more they respect you. I love that you said that's why they pay you the big bucks. You're supposed to be doing a bunch of thinking so that they don't have to do that thinking, and to convey that with confidence, you know, and I think your points were really well taken. Speaking of stressful situations where you're speaking to the C-suite, Michael, my friend, coming from the NFL, finance operations, I can only imagine what that was like. Talk to me about updating the C-suite there. What are your tips?
Yes, high-level executives such as CEOs, CFOs can be a difficult audience because of their limited time and high demand for their time. So they can be demanding, and they might interrupt your presentation whenever needed. But the first place I would go to, and I normally do, is I would ask other people who have presented to this group. I would ask them what did they find out, or what kind of takeaways. So that's the first place I would go. I would try to see if I can grab something quick and know something about what their experience is. The first thing I would say is know your audience. You must prepare your presentation knowing that your audience will receive your information that you're putting out. The information must be directly linked to their job, and these executives don't deal with nitty-gritty details. They deal in big picture presentations, big picture items. And then I would start at the end. Consider the main point that you're trying to prove your presentation and state that first. A clearly stated objective works to retain their attention. This is your time for the hook. Remember, these executives think strategically, and they don't deal in day-to-day operations. They structure presentations. So structure your presentation in big picture. Lastly, as far as your presentation goes, you be the main part of the presentation. It's okay to bring in visuals and things of that nature, but don't dwell on them. Difficult questions may arise, and don't try to snowball your answer. If you don't know it, just admit it and move on. Don't try to bluff the C-suite crowd, and don't go overtime. End the meeting on time. Thank you.
I love it. I absolutely love that, Michael. I really like that idea of asking other people who have been there. Like, such a smart thing to do, right? Like, before I go in front of the firing squad, let me find out what I can do and maybe get some inside scoop. It was fantastic. Great stuff. Lynn, you are a go-to-market strategist, an executive. You've been in this situation, not only selling to executives, but obviously working with your own executive teams. What's your advice in this scenario?
Wow, this is such an important skill to have. And it's like public speaking. It's like getting on camera. Presenting to a group of C-level executives can be really anxiety producing, right? But as we've talked about, this is such a huge opportunity to serve them as an audience. And we can do that and then stand out. And we can do that really with a 3-part formula. And that's going to help you to really nail that next update that you're going to put in front of this team. Firstly, I say get into the right headspace. We're thinking about that audience. Who are these people? As we've talked about, these are C-level executives that are busy. Ask ourselves, what is the the high level information and data that they really need to know and to act on. We're thinking about the fact that these folks they're visionary, their strategy, they're not ground game and execution. And I suggest, as we're getting in that headspace, float the agenda out ahead of time so we can see, do they want to add to it? Are there particular data points that are going to be important to them? And also, some expectations could come through that are going to guide our preparation, right? That we make sure we have all of the elements and deliver it in a way that they've conveyed. Part 2 of this 3-part formula is really getting the message right. We've heard already, pick those main points that are really going to be important. And I think putting it into a framework is helpful. So it's memorable, it's recallable for them. So here are the 3 KPIs that we exceeded in the quarter. And then for those main points, I like tying those to the stuff that this community is going to care about: the making money, the saving money, the mitigating risk, the how do we compete effectively against our competitor, how did we improve our user or customer or employee experience. And then the counterpoint to that is, what are the improvements that we've made or are going to make in these areas where we didn't perform, we underperformed? And again, tying that back to the making of money, the saving of money, the stuff that they really care about and they're held accountable for. Part 3 is, we now need to get our execution right. And I believe we can do that as we are brief, we're bright, we're fun, and then we're done, right? So 5 tips for that. Spare the context, a whole bunch of preamble, a whole bunch of introductory information, and give the major conclusions up front, like we've talked about. And with that, I say use the first third of your presenting to present, and then leave the last 2/3 to the questions, because they're definitely going to have questions, maybe some zingers. And to help you with that, I suggest always give a handout. That's where the bar charts go, the graphs go, with key information that they need to both know and then act upon. So give them that handout. And then if you're going to use slides, again, we already touched on that, but I say 10 max, really heavy visuals versus text. And if you have text, make it a 30-point font that, again, you're giving them a handout so they can see all that granular information. So you want them to really focus in on you and your message and your story. And so having slides that are not detracting is really important. And I feel like if you'll follow these 3 points, getting in the headspace to prepare it, creating the right message that's very targeted and tied to things they care about, and then thirdly, executing, be brief, be bright, be fun, and then be done. And if you'll do those things, you will stand out. It will be impactful. It will be actionable for them, and they will appreciate you.
JT, you're on mute.
Look at me making the rookie host mistake. I love that, Lynn. I was commenting on, I love that idea of, and be done. Let's not forget to finish up too, right? But and be bright, like all great stuff. Folks, we're going to take your questions. So if you're watching live right now and you have a question, pop it in the chat and we'll see if the executive team can answer it for you. But I have one right out of the gate for all of you, because I think part of the reason that people get very nervous about presenting to the C-suite is they know that there's 1 or 2 people on there that are probably tough, right? I mean, I've never seen a C-suite where there isn't one gal or guy that's the hard one to talk to, the one that puts you on edge the moment you walk in the room. And so I wonder if any of you have thoughts, ideas, tips, things that you've done in the past to either calm the nerves or deal with that difficult person. Anybody want to dive in here? Any thoughts?
I'll go.
Thank you, Mark.
I'd maybe use that as my North Star. You remember I was saying about, being prepared and being on point. So who's the person that's going to dig in and ask those, not the first level questions or the second level questions, but the third level questions?
Yeah.
Because I think if you're prepared for that, then you're probably prepared for everything. And I think if you can kind of go toe to toe with that person, then you learn more, right? I don't know about you guys, right? But it was always the harder teachers that I had at school that ultimately, maybe years later, I realized I learned the most from. So I see that as a positive, maybe, rather than negative. And again, I've been there. I know it's easy to say, more difficult to do. But I try and look at it through that lens.
I really like that. I mean, I know for a fact that if we know that executive's difficult, all the other executives on the team know they're difficult too. So to watch somebody be prepared and deal with that, and you're like, okay, they can hold their own with so-and-so, not bad, right? Any other thoughts? Anybody else want to dive in? Lisa, you're nodding there.
Yeah, I just say, stay calm. Be calm, acknowledge their question, seek to understand, ask some follow-up questions. And if you don't know the answer, be transparent and say, I don't have the answer at this point, but I will follow up with you and I will get you the answer by X date. And just, don't be rattled. When you're rattled, that shows a lack of confidence and professionalism. So you want to just stay calm, ask questions, and say, I don't have the answer at this moment, but I will follow up and get you that by X date.
I love that you talked about being calm and the correlation to calming confidence, right? Like the moment you look doubtful, your data looks doubtful. I think that's such a good point. You can unravel later. You can go hang on and you can unravel later. I think that's great. I absolutely love it. I also have to say too, when it comes to, you all brought up, having presentations, having papers, pulling your thoughts together. Thoughts on that? Like if you do handouts in the room, they're all staring at the handouts. So do you all have advice? Do you like to send the stuff in advance? Do you like to hold everything until after for them to look at it? Like any thoughts on that?
I can say, I think that having it ready at the tail end of what you're presenting, so you're giving them the information and then you're handing it out, so now they can refer to it, that's going to help them with the questions. And going back to the first question, I just interject that in the selling environment, you're thinking about who is my audience, right? And going back to that, getting in the right headspace of who are you talking to, thinking about in their role. So if it's a CFO, they're very fixated on, the bottom line and elements of that. If there's the CEO, they're going to have a particular set of interests and what's really motivating them in their role. What are they accountable for? And so I think we can sort of reverse engineer what are the kinds of things that they're going to want to know, and being prepared for that. And like you would go into an interview, like you're doing a lot of preparation to think about the types of things, anticipate what they're going to want to know. So chances are you're going to be ready for that hard pitch or that curveball because you've thought about these people are in this role needing to interact with this information, and you've anticipated ahead. And that's going back to the standing out. They're really going to appreciate because you've done homework for them.
I love it. I think that's awesome. That makes so much sense. Hey, we've got a question, Mark, specifically to you. So we'll start you off, put you in the hot seat. Christina Maldonado wants to know, can you give an example of how to rephrase the response to the CEO when they ask if you've gotten something done and the answer is no? Great question, Christina.
I got a really good example. So I'd have these status meetings with the CEO every Monday. It was a Monday afternoon, 3:00. Not that it's burnt on my brain or anything like that. And it was the week of, we said that something was going to be done on Friday. So the meeting's on the Monday afternoon, and it's going to be done on that Friday. You're the other way around, right? The end of the week, end of that week. So the person that reported into me that was actually on top of that, I came in on the Monday morning. I had my cup of coffee, and it got about 9:30, and then I sat down with them and I said, okay, let's go through. He's going to ask you that he's going to ask me the question, but you're in charge. And again, I'd like to give you the exposure in the meeting. So so he went through everything. Yes, it's all going to get done, Mark. We went into the meeting, and so I was like, yes, here we go. I'd like John to give the update. And within about 30 seconds, John had capitulated. So when the CEO asked him whether it was going to be done on Friday, he's like, no, I don't think it is. So then the CEO immediately looked at me and said, your guy says it's not going to get done. What was happening? So it was two things. It was to look the CEO in the eye and say, it will get done on Friday. Right. Again, the answer is yes, it's getting done. SHIT or bust. And then I also said, John's still quite new, so I'll just take him for a walk at lunchtime, and we'll just recalibrate there. And I think actually, as I'm talking about it, JT, I think part of the being able to answer in the negative almost is, it goes back to what we've just been talking about, is to not be fazed about it. Because I think then it's like, oh, you've got it because something came up that was unexpected and you weren't fazed by it. So I have trust that you are managing this behind the scenes, whether things are going right or not. So that was an example. I'm not sure that answered the question directly, but that's the first thing that jumped into my head.
The takeaway I have from that, and I think it's a good one, is again, what we heard today, don't get flustered. If the answer is no, the answer is no. Okay, but obviously I've got to get that to a yes. So here's how I'm going to get it done. And, folks, I think the big takeaway you heard today, if I can interpret all of my excellent guests, which, by the way, you should be writing their names down right now. You should be going over and finding them on LinkedIn, and you should be following them, because all of them are sharing incredible wisdom on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's becoming one of the smartest social media platforms for professionals out there, but you got to follow the right people. And that's why we do Executive Table Talk. These are the right people. So follow them, connect with them. If you connect with them, send a customized connection request and tell them you saw them here on ETT. But in closing, what I want to say, what I heard from all of you today is be prepared, right? Pull the data together, present the data, present the facts, be concise, be confident, be calm, right? And just check that emotion at the door and get it done. And I think that's a real sign of respect. Remember, these are busy C-suite members, and they are expecting you to do a lot of the heavy thinking. You should be making their lives easier by having done all that legwork, and you're really showcasing that when you do that. So thank you, each and every one of you. Another amazing episode of Executive Table Talk powered by Work It Daily. Folks, go find these executives and follow them. Make sure you tune in with us every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are here to help you, because if you want to win, you got to work it daily, my friends. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.